Okay, so this video is going to be all about abstracts and how to create our abstracts for our assignment this week and what goes into a great abstract. Basically, an abstract summarizes an action research project. With the title, it helps the readers to decide if the study is something that they want to read about. The average length of an abstract is 1/4 to 1/3 of a page. And you can see here on the screen that I have a sample abstract for you. And this is as long as your abstract is going to be as well. It starts with the title, which we'll get back to in a minute, what goes into a great title. But the title of this one is The Effect of Daily Distributed Practice Questions on Secondary Students' Retention and Attitudes. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to read this abstract, and then we're going to go down here and we're going to highlight the following parts of the abstract, these colors, because I want you to know what goes into a great abstract. So when you write your own, you can have these same features as well. So this abstract says that the purpose of this study is to see if daily distributed practice questions will affect student retention and attitudes in a secondary geometry classroom. My fifth hour geometry class, comprised of 23 students in grades 9 through 12, will participate in this study. A pretest and a post-test will be given to measure student retention, and a survey will assess the student's attitude toward the distributed practice. I predict the results of this study will demonstrate that daily distributed practice will help the students retain first semester material and expand on the knowledge, resulting in improved test scores. Student attitudes will also improve. Now, the first thing I want you to notice is that this abstract is written in future tense. And the abstract that you write for your assignment is going to be in future tense as well, because you're telling me about the project that you plan to be doing. You haven't done it yet. Now, the first thing it wants us to highlight is the purpose statement. I really like their purpose statement. I'm going to go get my gray highlighter up here, and I'm going to highlight this whole first sentence because that's the purpose statement. And it's a great one because it's very explicit. It says the purpose of the study is to. It's not implied. I don't have to look around for it. It's right there at the beginning, and I would like your purpose statement to be the same way. Now, the next thing it wants us to find is the strategy, and we're going to highlight it pink. Now, what we mean by strategy is what is the new thing that this teacher tried in their classroom that they had never tried before? And in this study, it's going to be daily distributed practice questions. So I'm going to find that down here and highlight it pink. Daily distributed practice is the new strategy that they tried. Now, the yellow is what is impacted. So what were they trying to impact with that daily distributed practice? And they were looking at, I'm going to go get my yellow highlighter. They were looking at student retention. Let me find it in our paragraph here. And they were also looking at student attitudes. Now you notice that there's two things affected or impacted by the strategy, and there's going to be two things affected or impacted by the strategy that you choose as well, which is why I put a little 2 out beside it. Next, we're going to highlight how they measure student attitudes and student retention. We're going to find how they're going to measure that, and we're going to highlight it green. So it said a survey is going to measure the student attitude, so I'm going to highlight the survey green. And it said a pre-test and a post-test was going to be given to measure the student retention. Since there's two things impacted, there's going to be also two measurements. The who is going to be highlighted blue. So basically, who was this study done on? It was my fifth hour geometry class. Okay, we could also highlight 23 students in grades 9 through 12. They also were the participants, or the who. And finally, the red highlight is going to be the prediction or the conclusion. So this is going to be what finally happened. So my prediction is down here. It is the last sentence or last couple of sentences, and I want your prediction to be down there as well. So I'm going to move so I don't have things highlighted twice here. I'm actually going to move this daily distributed practice. I'm going to unhighlight it. And I'm going to use, whoops, I changed it blue. Oh, you gotta love technology. We're gonna get it. I'm going to use this distributed practice as my strategy. It doesn't matter where you highlight it in your abstract that you turn in, just so you have all the pieces highlighted. That way I can go down and pick my red, and for my prediction, you see it's these last two sentences. They predict that the results of this study will demonstrate that daily distributed practice helped the students retain first semester material and expanded on the knowledge, resulting in improved test scores. Now, you notice the two things impacted were student retention and attitudes. So they called it student retention and attitudes all the way through the abstract. They don't change they don't start calling it comprehension and motivation. They stick to the same words all the way through their abstract, and I want you to do the same thing. Let's do one more together so you'll have a little example of what you're doing on your assignment. I want to go back up here to number 1 because I want to talk about the title. The last thing you're going to do is make sure you have a great title for your abstract. And here's what makes a great title. A great title has the strategy, the two things affected, and the who. So let's see if this title has those items. It has the strategy because it lists daily distributed practice questions. There's our strategy right there. It has the who, a secondary student. That's our who. And it has the two things affected. It has retention and attitudes. Okay, let's go down to number 2 and try out another abstract. Here's abstract number 2. We're going to do the same thing. Let's go ahead and read it. The effect of a pedometer on a high school girl's cardiovascular endurance and motivation. That's our title. The purpose of this study is to see if the use of a pedometer will affect a high school girl's cardiovascular endurance and motivation. The participant for the study, Valerie, will consist of one high school fitness student. The pedometer will be hooked on the side of the participant's pants to count how many steps she is taking during 6-hour fitness class for 2 weeks. For this study, the participant will be given a pre-test and post-test over her cardiovascular endurance using jump ropes. I will be using a teacher observation checklist to measure Valerie's motivation. I predict the use of the pedometer will increase Valerie's cardiovascular endurance and improve her attitude. All right, the first thing we want to find is the purpose, and we want to highlight it gray. I like theirs already because I notice it's very explicitly stated and it's the first sentence. All right. It's not implied. The next thing we're going to find is the strategy. What is the new thing that they tried? All right, and the strategy in this example is the pedometer. The pedometer. The next thing that we want to try to find are the two things impacted. What are the two things that are going to be affected or impacted by the pedometer? The two things impacted are going to be highlighted in yellow. So let me go get my yellow highlighter. And we are looking at cardiovascular endurance as one of the things affected. And we're also looking at motivation. I put a little reminder down here for you that there's going to be 2 of those. So if we have 2 things impacted, we're going to have to measure those 2 things somehow. So I'm going to go get my green highlighter, and I am going to measure it using the teacher observation checklist is what's going to be used to measure the motivation. And the pre-test and post-test is going to be used to measure her cardiovascular endurance. And so there's 2 of those as well. For the blue, I'm going to go get my blue highlighter and I'm going to find the who. The who in my study is going to be Valerie. She's one high school fitness student. And my red is going to be my prediction. It's what I think is going to happen in my study, and it's always the last sentence of my abstract. Whoops, I got a little crazy there. Let's try that again. It's my whole last sentence. Now, you notice that right now it's a prediction, but when I do my real abstract for my project, I'm going to go back and change all of this to past tense because the project will be over at that time. But for now, it's all in the future, and so it's future tense. Let's check out our title. Remember, a great title has the strategy, the 2 things affected, and the who. So our strategy is listed in our title, pedometer. Our who is a high school girl. Our two things affected are cardiovascular endurance, and the other thing affected or impacted is motivation. So there's our title, and it's a great one because it has all three of those components. All right, you're going to get to do one yourself. I'm going to give you an abstract and you're going to get to highlight it and see how you do. And then you're going to have an abstract assignment for next week where you write an abstract for the project that you're thinking about doing at this point. Now, here's what we know about action research. It's always evolving. So you can make modifications to the abstract that you turn in if you decide to do something different next week. But for next week's assignment, just complete an abstract on what you're thinking about doing right now, and please know it can always change in the future. So if you go back to our Moodle shell, you'll see the activity where you get to practice highlighting one of the activities on your own, and then there'll be the answer sheet so you can see how you did, and then you'll see also the assignment that's detailed how you do your abstract for next week. Great luck. I know you're going to do fantastic, and I look forward to reading your abstracts.